All right, welcome to your lesson today. It is Tuesday, April 7th, and we are going to be learning about solving equations that have many steps. We call them multi-step equations, and we're going to practice solving multi-step equations and multi-step inequalities. Now, what you are going to do is take down these examples as notes as you're watching along, and then you'll submit the notes that you took so I know that you watched the lesson and have completed that for today. And you will not have any assignment outside of the notes you take with this video. All right, so I'm going to write down the examples as we go since I expect you to do the same. So for example number 1, I have 20 times x plus 2.5, and that is equal to 15 times 2x plus 1. So whenever I'm solving an equation, I need to remember that this side equals this side. So I want to figure out what x makes the left equal the right, or this statement equal this statement. So my first step is always going to be parentheses. I need to undo the parentheses by distributing out the number that touches the parentheses. This is called the distributive property. So again, whenever I have parentheses, I need to distribute out the number that is being multiplied by whatever is inside. So 20 times x is 20x. This is going to be 20 times a positive 2.5. That is 50, positive 50. And then 20x plus 50 equals, and again, I have parentheses here, so I need to distribute out that 15. 15 times 2x is 30x's. 15 times a positive 1 is a positive 15. Now, all I want to do now is move my x so that it is on the same side. So you can say I have a 20x and a 30x, and I need my x's to be together, but in order to get them together, I have to do the opposite operation to move my x across or over this wall or across the equal sign. So I'm going to try to get my x's on the left side. So the opposite of a positive 30x is negative, and negative and subtraction are the same. So I'm going to subtract 30x from each of my x's. Remember, I must keep my x's together, okay? So 20 minus 30, think of I have $20, I spend 30. I had $20, I spent 30, so now I am in debt by $10. Or negative 10x. 20 minus 30 is negative 10. So I've got negative 10x plus 50. I'm just rewriting my problem now after I took away 30 x's from each side. If I had 30 x's and subtracted 30 x's, I'm left with 0 x's or just 0. And then I have that positive 15. Okay, now I need to remember that the last step is I get the x by itself, so I need to move that positive 50 away. So opposite of a positive is a negative. Notice how whenever I do one thing to each side, I draw my line across, and then I rewrite my equation. So I've got negative 10x's, 50 minus 50 is 0, and 15 minus 50 gives me negative 35. Okay. Now my last step, I've got negative 10 times x on the left, so to undo that multiplication, I'll divide each side by negative 10. Anything divided by itself is 1, so I'm left with 1x, or just x, equals, my negatives cancel, and 35 divided by 10 is 3.5. So in order for both sides to be equal in my original equation, my x would be 3.5 to make both sides equal. Let's try a couple more. I've got 12 times m plus 12. And that is equal to 6 times 3m plus 3. So again, my first step is to draw my line through the equal sign. And I need to look to see if I have parentheses, and I do. So I'm going to distribute my 6 into my parentheses to get rid of my parentheses. So before I do that, I'm going to rewrite the side that does not have parentheses. Okay, because there's nothing I'm going to do there yet. 6 times 3m is a positive 18m. And 6 times a positive 3 is a positive 18. Now, I know in the past I've taught you to subtract the smaller variable. However, I think that for these problems, it'll be easier if we can just get our variables on the left-hand side. So we're going to stick to that, getting our variables on the left-hand side. So I have a 12m and an 18m. So to get my variables on the left side, I need to move this 18m across. But I can't just move it across, I have to do the opposite operation. So this is a positive 18m, so opposite of positive is negative. So I'm going to subtract 18m from each side. Remember that subtraction and negative are the same. Okay. So 12 minus 18 is negative 6m. And I've got that plus 12 on the left. I'm just bringing everything down. 18 minus 18 is 0, and then I'm left with a positive 18 on the right. This is looking pretty good. My last step is to get my variable all by itself. So I'm going to subtract 12 from each side. Opposite of positive is negative. 12 minus 12 is 0. So I'm left with negative 6 times m equals 18 minus 12, which is 6. Now I'm down to my one-step equation. I have one step until I know what m equals. So this one step is negative 6 times m, or times a number. M represents a number, gives me 6. So to undo that multiplication, I'll divide each side by negative 6. Anything divided by itself is 1, and I'm left with m equals 6 divided by negative 6, which is negative 1. Now, if I wanted to check my work, I could do my answer, which is negative 1, and plug that in for my m's. So 12 times negative 1 plus 12 should equal 6 times 3 times negative 1 plus 3. All right, nice job. Let's do a couple more to finish up. Let's take a look at one more equation, and I want you to try this on your own. So I would recommend pausing the video after you get it written down. 5 times n minus 3 equals 3 times n plus 7. Why don't you pause the video and try this out? Okay, so let's go ahead and solve. I'm first going to get rid of my parentheses by distributing out my 5 on the left. 5 times n is 5n. And be careful, this is a negative 3. That minus in front of that 3 is the same as a negative. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So I'll write this as 5n minus 15 equals, excuse me, 3 times n is 3n. 3 times 7 is 21. So again, I'm distributing out my number that is touching my parentheses. All right, now that I've got that, I want to make sure my variables are on the same side. I want to move my variables to the left side. So I already have that 5n on the left, so I need to move this positive 3n. So opposite of a positive is a negative, so I'm going to subtract negative 3n, or take away 3n from each side. 5n minus 3n is 2n minus 15. 3n minus itself is 0, and I'm left with a positive 21 on the right. Now this is a two-step equation. My last step will be to get the 2n by itself. I've got a negative 15 still on that side, so I'm going to add 15 to each side. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Negative 15 plus 15 is 0, and 21 plus 15 is 36. My last step is to divide each side by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm left with 1n, or n, and 36 divided by 2 is 18. Okay, so I wanted to show you real quick how we could check our work, and then we will be about wrapped up. So if I wanted to check my work, I could plug my answer of n, which is 18, back into my problem for my n's. So I'm going to do that right here. Hopefully I have room. So 5 times my n, which is 18, minus 3, should equal 3 times my n, which is 18, plus 7. So all I did is I plugged in my answer back into the original problem. So let's see if we did this right. So I've got 5 times 18 minus 3. 18 minus 3 is 15. Remember that when I check my work, I have to use PEMDAS, order of operations, and parentheses come first. And then I have that equaling 3 times 18 plus 7, and 18 plus 7 is 25. So 5 times 15 is 75, and 3 times 25 is 75, okay? So when I plug in 18, I get 2 sides that equal each other. So my 5 times n minus 3 equals 3 times n plus 7. So when that happens, when I plug my answer in and I get the same on both sides are equal, then I know that I've done my work correctly for an equation. So we are going to wrap up there on Wednesday. So tomorrow we will practice solving a few more, probably like a very short video, and then I will give you an assignment to practice solving equations. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys are doing well. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Make sure that you submit your work, or not your work, but your notes on the next page, which should be your assignment. And I look forward to seeing what you guys did. All right, have a great day.